All right, let's open up a case file on a legend that is so old and so terrifying, it's haunted the winter nights of Europe for centuries. Today, we're investigating the spectral procession known as the Wild Hunt.
Our whole investigation really starts with one single chilling question. It's a question people have been asking for generations. Whenever the wind howls and the sky gets dark, what exactly is that riding on the winter storm?
So let's look at the incident report. The core phenomenon is this furious nighttime chase happening right across the winter sky. Witnesses all over the ancient Germanic world described this terrifying procession, and for them, it was a powerful and very dark omen.
Officially, this event is known as the Wild Hunt. And look, this wasn't just some scary story you tell around the fire. It was seen as a very real warning that something awful was about to happen. If you saw the hunt, you just knew war, plague, or some other huge disaster was right around the corner. Now, every hunt has a leader, right? Someone calling the shots. And the figure at the head of this spectral chase, well, he's a god. A god known by a lot of names, but feared by every single person who saw him.
A prime suspect is a figure known to the early Germanic people as Odin. You probably know him by his more famous Norse name, Odin, the Allfather. He's the master of this whole terrifying celestial chase.
Okay, let's check out the suspect profile. What's wild is how consistent the description is. We're talking about a one-eyed man in a dark, shadowed cloak, and he's riding his supernatural eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. And his MO? It's unmistakable. The sky fills with storm clouds, and you hear the sound of thunder that sounds just like pounding hooves. But here's the thing. Odin doesn't ride alone. No, this is not a solo mission. He is accompanied by a chaotic host of accomplices, a whole spectral army of the dead. And the sound of them coming, it was as much of a terror as the sight of them. Sources describe it as more than just wind. It was like a roaring gale mixed with the howling of phantom dogs. It made the very air just vibrate with fear.
So who's in this army? Well, first you have the restless dead. Spirits who, for whatever reason, just couldn't find peace and were basically forced to ride with their god. They're joined by these massive wolves, and crucially, Odin's two ravens, Hugin and Munin. They're his scouts, flying ahead to spot the prey.
And this wasn't just some random joyride across the sky. No way. The hunt had a purpose. It had a target. So let's take a look at the victimology. Who or what were they actually hunting?
The quarry was very specific. Odin was hunting the souls of the dishonorable. We're talking traitors and cowards. He went after spirits who refused to rest, and sometimes his hunt would even target the living, people who had committed terrible, unforgivable sins.
Of course, the legend changed a bit depending on where you were. Our investigation is now going to take us to a specific case file from Norway, where this myth took on its own unique and, frankly, terrifying characteristics. In Norway, the hunt was called the Asgard Ride, which basically means the Asgard Ride. And it was a deeply feared event in their folklore, especially during the long, dark nights of the Yule season. And in the Norwegian version, the victim profile got even bigger and more tragic. The Åsgårda would sweep up anyone who died of violent or untimely death, victims of murder, people who died by suicide, even women who died in childbirth. For these poor souls who died outside the norms of society, the legend almost provided a strange kind of mythological home, ensuring they weren't forgotten, even if they were doomed to ride forever with the hunt. And this brings us to the danger for anyone still alive. This was not a spectacle you just watched from your window. To even see the Åsgårda was to risk being carried off into the sky yourself, or worse, abducted and dragged straight into the underworld. So what could you do? Well, people developed a pretty clear survival protocol. If you heard that telltale sound of the hunt getting closer, you were to immediately drop to the ground, face down, so they wouldn't see you. But really, the safest bet of all? Just stay inside on those dark winter nights, period. So let's close the case. Why? Why did this myth stick around for so long? What was the real motive behind this story? Because it's about so much more than just gods and ghosts. At its heart, the Wild Hunt was a way for ancient people to make sense of things they just couldn't control. It gave a face, a story, to the violent, chaotic power of winter storms. And it really embodied this deep, primal fear of death
and the absolutely terrifying idea that the dead might not stay at rest. Ultimately, this ancient legend served a really deep human purpose. It gave a face to fear. And that leaves us with one final question for our own time. What are the chaotic, terrifying forces in our lives that we still disguise as monsters in the dark?